Hi, today we're going to be looking at the TSA 2016 question, which goes, with easy access to vast amounts of information through the internet, what advantage is there to remembering facts? Thinking of these four aims, and using our standard structure, feel free to pause the video if you need a refresher, let's get into it. In this question, what sort of terms do you think we need to define? Well, I'd go with facts, and I'd call these objectively true statements, or something along that line. And then I'd go with advantage, as in what advantage is there. And I'd ask some questions about this. Is the advantage logistical? Is it moral? Is it personal or social? So does it make it easier for a person? Is it morally right to do something? Is there a philosophical sort of advantage you might get from it? Epistemological? Any of that sort of thing? Are the benefits or the advantages to society? Or are they to the person who happens to remember? These are all questions which might go through your mind and might, as much as anything else, trigger points that you might think about. We might ask ourselves, how do I answer the question? What sort of question are the examiners looking for here? Well, the answer is a list. That is, a list of advantages. It says what advantage is there to remembering facts. So it asks for a list of advantages. Try and come up with some now. Take some time, feel free to pause the video. I came up with a few here. I'm sure there are more and feel free to use yours. For example, it's quicker to remember facts than to look them up on the internet. If you remember a fact and you know you got it from a legitimate source, then you're not going to be misled by sources on the internet. There's no need to sift in order to find the fact. If you simply remember it, you don't need to look through the internet. That's different than quicker because you might totally miss the fact if it's just somewhere in the bowels of the internet. It's impressive to people if you can remember things off the top of your head, and that might be an advantage in, for example, a job interview or even a social situation. If you can remember things, you don't rely on technology, and that might be good for various reasons. Can you think of any? Well, one subsidiary reason to that might be it allows you to keep power, not be in the thrall of technology monopolies such as Apple, that sort of thing. So, actually, to answer this question, you basically just need a list. There are a few points I'm going to focus on here to show you exactly how I'd make them, but there's no need to concentrate on if there are actually advantages. You could, if you wanted, put in a paragraph saying it's not obvious that there are advantages. However, if you do that, you want to say why that is not the case if you're going to talk about any of these. You're going to want to counter-argue any paragraph that says, well, there aren't really that many advantages. Instead of counter-arguing against yourself, you might simply not say there are no advantages, and you might concentrate on evaluating which of these points are important, which matter. Though it doesn't ask for that specifically in the question, it says what advantage rather than which advantages. So you might be thinking of scale of advantage as well as number of advantages. A good way of doing that and making sure you hit the scale as well is evaluating which are important. Let's look at a couple of advantages in details then. Well, to start with, if you can remember things, you won't be misled by sources on the internet. Why? Well, if you know a thing, you don't need to check it, because you know it and it's in the forefront of your mind. And if you don't need to check it, knowing that information on the internet can be false, though isn't always or even often, but it can be false, if you don't need to check and information can be false on the internet, you won't be misled. We might ask ourselves, so what? Why do we care about being misled? Well, being misled is bad. Why? Well, it makes us come to bad decisions, it makes us believe untrue facts, and we believe that good decisions are good and true facts are better than false facts. Therefore, being misled is bad. Because remembering things, through the mechanism shown to you up here, remembering things stops you being misled, and because being misled is bad, remembering things seems, on balance, good. Can you think of a counter-argument to this? Well, it's hard to remember and you can make a mistake. Let's bring this and feed it back in up here. If you know a thing, you don't need to check. That may be false. You may need to check even if you think you know a thing, because you don't know that you know what you know. So you don't know that you know the thing, so you want to check. Information in your memory can also be false. Therefore, if you don't check the internet, you won't be misled, but if you don't try and remember anything, you won't be misled. But that wouldn't work at all, so we need to discard that as an idea. Let's move on to another point. The second advantage we're going to look at is why it will lead us to not rely on technology. So we're going to walk through this one really slowly and really step by step, just so you see the logical progression of the point. You might say, well, why will it lead to no reliance on tech? Well, if you don't remember something, and the internet is the only other way you have, so easy access, so the only other easy way you have, you need access to the internet to get to these vast amounts of information through the internet. If you need access to the internet, you need technology, because only technology can reach the internet. If you need access to technology, your options are reduced. What do I mean by this? Well, if you have to spend money on a phone or a laptop to reach the internet, you'll be able to spend money on fewer other things, so your options are reduced. We might ask, so what? Why do we care about our options being reduced? Well, we might say options are good. Reliance on technology reduces options. Therefore, reliance on technology is bad. There are a few counter-arguments you could bring in here. Can you think of any? Actually, let's just note before we move on to that remembering reduces reliance on a bad thing, and therefore remembering is good. Can you think of any counter-arguments? Well, we rely on technology for more than facts. So it's not the case that we'd have to go out and buy a phone where we wouldn't otherwise. We still have a phone anyway. So the extra cost to relying on tech does not exist. There is no extra cost. It happens anyway. Of course, we could say it also does not reduce options because we choose to need to check the internet and therefore we have the option. The third advantage to remembering facts that we're going to look at is that it is impressive at the heart of it. Basically, we might ask ourselves, why is it impressive? Well, we might say remembering is a skill. Everyone relies on technology at the moment, or at least lots of people do. So they have vast amounts of information, so they don't remember things. So not everyone remembers, or everyone does not remember some things. So remembering is unusual skills are impressive. And we say that remembering is an unusual skill because not everyone does it. So because remembering is an unusual skill, and unusual skills are impressive, remembering is itself impressive. We might say, so what? Link that back to the question, why is it an advantage that remembering is impressive? Impressive is an advantage because, basically, think of a job interview. If you impress someone in a job interview, you're more likely to get a job, and that is an advantage. You can also see if you're impressive in a social situation, you might get on better with people, and that might be an advantage in getting on better with people. Can you think of a counter-argument to this? Well, people rely on both technology and their own memory. So let's bring this back up to our earlier argument and say, everyone relies on technology, everyone does not remember. While it's true that everyone does not remember some things, it's not the case that anyone can remember everything. So everyone's going to rely on technology a bit, and everyone remembers a bit. So, though it may be impressive, it won't be as unusual as it would need to be very impressive. So, it may be a little impressive, but this is at best likely to be a small effect. Overall, I hope that's been helpful.